Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Maggie Ibrahim Taney, and I am the Alumni Director for the College of Arts and Sciences. I would like to begin with a couple of housekeeping notes. First, we will be keeping everyone muted to ensure we can hear our speakers. Also, you are welcome to keep your video on or off. It's up to you what you would like to do. But know that this session is being recorded, and we will be sharing it with those who are not able to join us this evening. Following our speakers, we will be having a Q&A using the chat function. So if everybody would like to take a second to get used to the chat function, you can open it. It's on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And if you want to open that up and maybe type your class year or just type a hello note, just so we know that people know how to use it, that would be great. Great. Thanks, everybody. Hello, good evening, welcome. If anyone has a question while Dean Ferme or Dr. Bates are speaking, please do put it in there. I will be monitoring the chat during the Q&A, so I'll make sure it gets asked. I also do encourage you guys to put yourself off mute and ask the question if you feel comfortable doing that. So before we get started, I'd like to share a message from Vice President of Alumni and Donor Experience, Jennifer Heisi.
Welcome to today's program, one of many offered by your UC Alumni Association. Before we begin, it's important for me to say thank you for joining us. By actively participating in our offerings and experiences, you are harnessing the power of your alumni network. There are Bearcats all over the world, more than 315,000 alumni in 127 countries, which makes virtual programs like this so rewarding. These challenging times do come with a silver lining. We are more connected than ever before, creating boundless opportunities. The University of Cincinnati and each of you is stronger and better positioned because of our lifelong connections through our alma mater. We love providing opportunities like this one, where alumni can learn, network, and give back. So settle in and enjoy today's program. And if you like what you hear today, please share on social media using the hashtag #ThyLoyalChildren. Thanks again for joining us. Go Bearcats.
All right.
Great. All right, Dean Val, on to you.
Yep. I was just I saw that John just showed up. Well, he kind of showed up because now I see him. Before I just saw his empty chair. Hi, John. Hi. Well, and hi to everybody. I saw Matt Doyle as well. But so let me just say very quickly. Some of you have already been informed about some of the things that we've done in the past year. So I don't want to really rehash a lot of that stuff, but I do think it does help to give a little bit of context as to where we are, what we're doing. But tonight I really wanted to sort of focus more on sort of the vision of where we want to go, how we want to move forward. And so my initial thoughts are, we've had an incredible year in terms of the events that have happened to us, but also in some very positive ways in the way that the college has I think it's had a really, really, really good year in terms of some of the things that we've done. As many of you know, we've come out of the sort of the revenue deficit that had been with the college for the past 8 years. We were able to eat into a little bit of the expense deficit as well. And then, we sort of jumped into this, the pandemic. I mean, this is something that is staying with us. I think it continues to have a great effect on the way we teach, the things that are happening right now that we are trying to address. So to me, that's it is a reality, but it has also given us some I think opportunities to think about who we are, what we want to do, what we want to represent, And generally, what we believe in as a College of Arts and Sciences are strengths. And I think there are two things that come to my mind in terms of strength of this college. One, is diversity in every sense: diversity of people, diversity of interests, diversity of majors, and really scholarly and educational interest. And so that's something that I think we can really harness, especially if there is a will, as I think there is from me and my leadership team, to sort of move forward in a way that is conscious of what is happening in this country, of the things that we want to achieve in terms of who we represent, how we represent it, and with what kind of spirit we represent it. I have been going through departments to meet with the faculty, and I typically bring as my lead-in is an emphasis that I really want us all to have on civility. Civility of discourse, civility of communication, civility of how we deal with people in adverse situations with us, trying to make sure that we understand from the empathy sides the difficult times that a lot of people are facing. And, I know that it's not difficult for everybody, but for some people, it certainly has gotten a lot more difficult in this environment. And so I just want to make sure that civility is something that we keep in mind, even as we become stressed. And so that's one of the things that I've been emphasizing is there's a lack of civility, generally speaking, in discourse in this country. And I want us to actually represent a small fraction of what we want to do in terms of changing the tide on that. So that's one of the goals that I think we're emphasizing. The other one is, and I don't mean it, there's the usual refrain that you don't want to have a crisis go unused for good purposes. And I don't personally ascribe to that, but what I do ascribe to is we are in a time of crisis. We're in a time of many different things happening to us. As you know, we have a permanent reduction of budget that is, 8%, $4 million. First of all, I always look at the good side. Initially, it was 20%. So I'm looking at it, okay, I think we can handle this better. But secondly is, how do we see this affecting us, and what does it give us as incentives to change the model for what we do? So within that frame, some of you know that what I've done is I've created what I call 20 years later, a 21st century task force, right? I mean, it's I think it's overdue, but I think it's actually an exciting time for the college to think about it. And the pillars of it are the four areas that I'm looking at are, what are our central core values? Who are we? One of the things that we have discussed is wanting to be a very inclusive community. And I will let Letitia speak to this later. But if that's a core value of what we do, then we need to align to it. Then we need to figure out how we're going to do better in terms of our representation, the way we support diversity, the way we support inclusiveness, the way we support even those who don't think like us. So, I mean, how do we have, for example, open classrooms where diversity of opinions are actually welcome, regardless of whether they come from up, down, left, or right. And we are civil, again, about the conversations we have. So that's one point. And I know Letitia is actually leading that task force. We have a task force group that is on entrepreneurship and growth. So we want to be able to understand what the next generation of students is looking at, what the world looks like in terms of the opportunities that we have to be entrepreneurial with the things that we do in research, but even in pedagogy. So what are the opportunities out there? What kind of collaborations we can have with different partners? And I know some of you in this room who have joined us are part of our advisory board that is actually looking at some of those possible opportunities, especially in what we call areas of distinction. And so that to me is an exciting opportunity. The third one is structures. Structures means everything. We have departments. We have some departments that are talking about becoming schools, but I'm really seeing it overall. I mean, like, if nothing else, the pandemic has allowed us to think about our spaces, even our working spaces, our structural homes at the university, as places that can be reconfigured. So what may they look like? So let's think about that organizationally. Do we need to be in the old frames, or can we do things differently in terms of also where we have our majors? One of the things, and I haven't shared it, and so I know there's at least a couple of faculty members in here, but I just want to, as we're talking about these structures, can we think about central structures that allow, for example, for interdisciplinary work, things that in fact can actually be outside of departments, but maybe are thematically organized so that people can come in together and then disband together? Thinking about those things are also exciting to me. And I've had some communications back and forth with the different groups. And then the fourth one, and Mike is actually one of the co-leads of that one, is futures. And so really think about what our university and our college might look like in 25, 30 years. How different could it be? What are the things that might not be there that we want to be ready to handle at that point? And how do we get there? So what kind of proposals do we have for exploring new ways of doing things that might lead us to be prepared 25 years down the line for what the changed world might be? And that could be in a number of different areas. Again, if we tie them all together, we could think about one of the big things today is climate change. Another one is water sustainability. We're in a good area for water, but we might, in fact, because of that, end up being a city that explodes, because if water becomes so scarce in other areas, that people might congregate here. So how would we respond to that? How would we respond to it as a college, as our degrees, as the kind of things we offer? So I think it's an exciting time. I know that we have this looming big budget cut that we are dealing with. We also are handling a very, how do I say this, up and down group of students who are struggling with the format of their learning right now. We do know this from advisors. Students are very tired, as are our faculty. It's been a nonstop since the moment COVID hit. They've had to faculty have had to readapt how they teach in many cases. They've had to move things from in person to online, and students have had to follow suit. So it's been tense. We know that there are a lot of students who are wondering if they can actually make it through another semester. Same thing with the faculty. We have to be mindful of the mental stress. So how do we handle that as well? So in all of this, I think I want to give a shout to my team. I think they've been a pillar of strength for me in terms of working with me and advancing some of the things that we're trying to do. It's not always easy. They know that I sometimes get into these really lengthy conversations about how they have to follow their goals, and but we're doing things. And I think it's really important because they've also kept me honest about the things that I wanted to do, that I think I want to do. And then sometimes I forget that I think I want to do. And so reminding me about this is really important, because they tell me that, I have to actually pony up to the things that I say that I want to do. And that's always the notion of a good team, is that they are not afraid to let me have it when I need to have it. And so but I'm really excited. I think we have diversified who we are in the way we do things. And I want to come back to this group because I think I did not choose my picture behind me by chance. The building behind us, as you know, is Macmicken Hall. It's a fraught history that the university has, and it's a history that we're trying to confront. Okay, and at this time, it's really important for us to deal with this, regardless of where we end up on this. But I think it is really important for us to continue to think about how places of higher learning have evolved, how they evolve in different ways, and where we want them to evolve in a way that represents some of the high values and goals that we, both as academics, but also as people who have been educated in academia, espouse for themselves and for others. And so, I understand what that building is behind me, even though I've been here only a year. I understand the history. I, in some ways, think that history is an important history for us to continue to explore, correct, mitigate, make better. And on that note, I actually will cede the room to Letitia, who has been terrific. I think she didn't know what she was taking on when she came into the role. I kind of hit it very well, but she has done the job she's been incredible. We are actually doing, I'll let Letitia say, but the work she's doing is allowing us to be equitable in a way that I think is going to be transformational for how we do things. So Letitia, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Val. Good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you all tonight to talk to you about the work that I am engaging in and how I'm thinking about ways in which to move the college forward and really for us to sustain sort of our leadership position as it relates to being the leaders of inclusive excellence and community partnerships within the institution at large. And so, as Val alluded to, some of the ways in which that I'm thinking about how we get this work done is geared toward not just having equitable change, but sustainable equitable change, right? And so we have seen times throughout the course of history where we have blips of equity, right? And so things pop up here or there that momentarily allow us to kind of get a bit of a foothold into making changes that at the moment feel really good, but then they peter off over time. And so what I really have been focused on is working on structural issues, thinking about policies and procedures, as well as some programmatic elements, which I'll talk about here in a moment, but really focusing on how do we change the culture of how we do business in a way that equity is not just a thing that we're doing, but it's something that is woven into everything that we do within the college. And if we do it that way, it will certainly be sustained over time, and we won't find ourselves 10 years from now staring down the same types of problems. We will be able to easily see the progress that we've made and continue to build on that momentum. Part of my lens for thinking about these things comes from my disciplinary training as a sociologist that studies race, class, and structures, right? And so all the things that we do, even simple things that we don't think about, even the ways in which we interact with each other, are all informed by these standard ways and practices that we're taught to do things. And so those are really the things that I am having conversations with faculty and staff about. How do we really re-envision the way that we govern ourselves in such a way that equity and inclusion are at the forefront of that? Some examples of this work begrudgingly cause extra work, right? And so I'm thinking about some of the overhauls that I've done recently in the college as it relates to our equitable hiring practices. Because we are an institution, the University of Cincinnati, that has equitable practices as our foreground as it relates to hiring, the College of Arts and Sciences had always been participating in equitable hiring practices, but we haven't really standardized the way in which those practices work across faculty and staff and across academic units and staff units. And so when I'm talking about changing the foundation of how we understand the way in which we do business, that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Ensuring that we are normalizing and standardizing processes and procedures. And almost even more importantly, to me anyway, is that these things are transparent. Because when we are doing things in a way that are not transparent, we sort of expose ourselves, be it intentionally or unintentionally, to potentially making some implicit bias types of errors. And so I'm really kind of putting my work in sort of two pots, if you will. And that first one is this structural change, policy change, so that we can ensure that we have sustained equity over time. The second thing is thinking about programmatic thrust, if you will, programs that we can roll out of the college that will help us with the structural stuff, but will also have sort of short-term, quick wins, if you will. One of the things that I've learned from my years of doing this equity work is that it is hard and it is exhausting work, but it is rewarding at the end. But it's also nice to have wins intermittently and to set our programs that we're rolling out up in such a way that we're able to have wins, because that also builds our morale, but it gives our ANS family, our UC family, our Bearcat family, really some confidence in what we're doing when we're able to say, look at the things we've able to accomplish. Thanks to the generosity of our donors, I now have a budget to roll out some of these initiatives. One of the ones that I'm most proud of is the Dean's Diversity Fellows, which will be rolling out this summer. We will have faculty that will be participating and helping us to do research that will move forward these structural changes. I'm not sure how many of you all are aware, but we had our student government come to the university president. Our dean's team met with them, talking to us about some recommendations that they had for how the university operates. And one of those were curricular changes. And so this summer, we'll have Dean's Diversity Fellows helping us work through some of those curricular changes. Our Breadth of Knowledge courses that have the culture component and the DEI component assigned to them, we're going to be doing a full in-college audit of those. And again, that is made possible by our generous donors who have allowed me to have a budget to compensate faculty for their expertise in these areas to help carry out this work. And so what does doing a full-scale audit on our diversity and inclusion breadth of knowledge courses equals? It equals really keeping us honest and transparent about the courses that we are allowing to fall into those categories and ensuring that those courses really hold to the spirit and the letter of those particular breadth of knowledge designations. And this to me is really important work because it is important, but also because it's something that our students brought to our attention as an area in which they wanted to see us doing work in. And it will also, again, lead to that sustainable equity that I talked about a moment ago. And so I think it will give us an opportunity to really be collaborative with our students as well. And so in addition to thinking about sustainable, equitable change, I also want to be thinking about collaborative partnerships. I think I have some pretty good ideas about how to move us forward as a college. And I think I'm pretty smart. But I also am smart enough to know that I need collaborative partnerships to move this work forward and to really ensure that we are doing the things that we say we are doing, that we are really keeping honest to the mission that we have. I think sort of the last couple of things I want to mention is the rollout of our equity site that is going to be coming in mid-spring, late spring semester. This site to me is so important for building that foundation of trust and to really keep us honest. One of the things that is super important to me is that we are transparent and that our ANS family, our Bearcat family, is able to really hold us accountable for the things that we say that we do. And one of, to me, the most important parts of this equity website is going to be our data dashboard, our data dashboard, if you will, where all members of the Bearcat family and community will be able to come and look at what we are doing. What benchmarks did we set for ourselves in terms of enrollment of URM students? And how have we done over the years? How have we done since we've rolled out certain programs over the years? It's super important to me that we not just be saying that we want to do these things, but that we're doing them and that you all are actually able to say to us, hey, you told us that you were going to do this thing, and I can point to a place where I can hold you accountable for hopefully always doing that thing. But in the case that maybe we didn't quite hit the mark like we want, that you can say, hey, Letitia, you said to me that you were going to do this, and I looked at your dashboard where I can measure your success or measure your progress, and I see you haven't updated that in a year. What's happening there? That to me is how we create trust, true collaborative partnership that will move us forward for sustainable, equitable change. And that is really the only way that I'm going to be successful in my role, and the college is going to be successful moving these things forward. And so I'm just really excited to be able to talk to you guys about some of those things and to really hopefully collaborate with you all about the areas in which you might be interested in seeing us think a little bit more about equity and inclusion and community partnerships in the college, and how we might partner on some of that work.
Great, thank you both so much. I really appreciate all of those insights, and I want to we can move on to the Q&A. So if people have questions, they're more than happy to go off of mute and ask those or put them in the chat. If no one wants to get started, I can start with some questions that were shared ahead of time. So in sort of this, oh, sorry, did somebody want to go? Oh. No. Okay, sorry. So hard in the virtual world when you're not sure if someone is talking or not. So you're sharing a little bit about how different this semester has been for our students. Do you guys have an idea of how many classes are being held face-to-face versus, sort of that online, or if they're hybrid models? And maybe talk a little bit about how the lab courses are being taught with COVID precautions.
Yeah, I can give you, I can't give you the specific numbers of classes, but I can give you the percentages. So university-wide, I can't actually break it down to the level of the college, but I will tell you that the college percentages are slightly different in the direction of face-to-face. So overall, the university is offering about 74% of its classes online, about 18%, 19% in hybrid format, so some in person, some online, and the rest in face-to-face format. So that's the overall look. And what it means is that, in fact, if our faculty chose to have face-to-face classes, they had to account for a different kind of spacing that allowed really a radius of 8 feet between each student in the classroom. Even though, as you know, 6 feet is what people recommend, you actually have to create an 8 feet radius in order for that to happen. So that meant that if you have a class, and typically it has been the smaller classes, the more seminar-like style classes that have been face-to-face, you have to take a bigger room and space people in larger spaces. So that's been one way of handling this. Now, with regards to labs, someone asked the question about labs. Labs have been functioning at 50% capacity, basically because of how the labs are spaced out. That seems to have been the sweet spot, which actually has been, in some ways, a good thing. And what has happened is there's been a basically every other week, students show up for the labs. So they are divided in two groups, A and B. A comes 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. The other group comes 2, 4, 8, 6, 8. And the rest of the experiments and the work is done remotely, or during the weeks when people are not there, they are allowed to follow in a virtual format on the labs. So there's been different solutions for the labs depending on where the labs were and which discipline they were. But and there are some labs, I would say physics is one of the places where, in fact, there have been fully online labs. During the summer, actually, all of our labs were fully online. And that was a real departure from what we've done in the past, but it was apparently fairly successful. I mean, not everything is ever fully successful when you're starting to implement it. So we have had glitches, we have had some problems. The good thing is that we now have at least one web designer who's helping us with some of the more urgent fixes, especially because we were also, as if things weren't hard enough, we like to have, I don't know who I was saying today, I don't know how many of you are familiar with ice skating, right? But, you come into the performance and you're supposed to perform a triple Lutz, and all of a sudden someone says, no, actually it has to be a quadruple Lutz, and you haven't had time to practice it. So you may as well do it right now in the middle of your performance. So, so basically part of this that was difficult is that we also implemented a new system for how we do online courses. So we moved from Blackboard to Canvas, and that meant that there were glitches there as well. I think, it's pretty amazing. That, as I said earlier, that people are still functioning at high levels. I have to give credit to, as I said, everybody who's been embarking in this adventure. It is a very difficult energy to sustain. So I am concerned about it. But as many of you know, with Thanksgiving, we stop face-to-face classes. The last couple of weeks of the semester are going to be done at a distance, which is appropriate, also giving the spike in cases that is happening nationwide. And I just heard that, in fact, Hamilton County has just issued a new ordinance about COVID. So it's, there are a lot of concerns, but that's the answer to the question. I hope I answered everything. Yeah, I see a question by Brianna. So the enrollment for the college, so if you were following, the university actually did break its record enrollments this year. We broke the 47,000 student mark. A lot of that gain was done via online, UC Online. The college itself had a downtrend of 1.8%, which did impact our revenue. The saving grace so far, at least with regards to what has happened thus far, is that, as I mentioned, the summer was in fact very impactful for us. Our enrollments during the summer were 20% higher than any previous year. So that was a record-breaking moment. Gave us a little bit extra revenue, which allows us to absorb some of the fall in numbers. Now, our enrollment for the spring is now going pretty slow. Students are kind of holding in a holding pattern. So right now we're looking at a 10% at the same time this year decrease in enrollments. We are keeping an eye on that. We are trying to make sure that we're turning every stone to ensure that students come back. But I also understand why they are careful about this, why some of them might in fact need some time off. So if that happens, our financial outlook is not as good as it could be.
Thank you, Val. So, another question in the chat.
Yeah. How are you looking? This is Pamela McCoyne. How are you looking to? What are you doing about that spring enrollment? I'm sure it's a lot of different things, but how are you addressing that to try to get that -10 to be even less negative, or maybe even board?
Yep, Pamela, that's I think there's so many factors. So one of the things, I actually had a meeting with all of the advisors who are really down in the trenches. They're the ones who are, talking with students, trying to get them to enroll. I mean, what we do see is that there are two concerns. One is that, in fact, students are admitting, not all of them, but some students are admitting of working in challenging circumstances. So they are looking for some grace, and it's a very difficult thing to say. I'm one of these people who believes in grits and resilience, right? I mean, you're going to fight through it, but I also understand that I speak from a position of privilege and a life where I was in a different situation, and I can tell you, I actually had a WebEx meeting like this with students. And it was amazing to see the background, what was happening in the background. I mean, the kind of interruptions that they were facing, the kind of, little screaming brother who comes and jumps in the student's lap, mother who's calling, come to the table. It's real life. I mean, my team members know, because every once in a while, my door will open and my grandson walks in and he has to explore. And, it's like, okay, here you are, right? I mean, but we need to give ourselves some grace. So one of the things that some students, in fact, the student government has asked all of the college to consider whether they would switch to a pass-fail option to sort of absorb some of this, and by the way, it's a two-way street, because some of it is also because Some of our faculty admit that, switching from in-person to online for people who have never done it before is a challenge. So they too are cognizant that sometimes they're not performing at the level that they would want to. And so the pass-fail option is one of the things that some students are waiting to see on. We just went through the whole voting process for the whole college, and it turns out that in fact it's an even split between departments who want to provide a pass-fail option to students and those who do not. The trick here, not the trick, but what we said is, if we're going to be in this situation again in the spring, let's do the vote both for the fall and the spring. In my view, that might actually reassure some of the students that there is a mechanism, a safety mechanisms in case they cannot perform at the same level. I actually see it as an experiment, Ben. I mean, what I'm looking at is this. There are half of the departments who are going to do it and half who are not. I want to see what happens in terms of the enrollments with those. It might be that, in fact, we gain something there if students feel a little bit more reassured that it's not, there's a little bit of a safety net for them there. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I have to give credit to some of our faculty and some of our units. They're going out there, they're talking with students, they're trying to reassure them about what is going to happen next semester. They're collaborating a lot with the advisors, and not because he's here, but I do want to give a shout to the English department. So Bob Highland is from the English department, and they've done a terrific job. Just talking with Lisa Holstrom, who is our senior assistant dean for student success, she's reported that in fact numbers for English are up in terms of enrollment for the spring by only 7 students, but 7 students is better than nothing, and it certainly beats the minus 10%. So I do want to say that there are some units that are doing a really good job of actually working at that. And there's more. I've actually said, hey, put me in front of people. The other thing that sometimes we have is financial situations where people can't actually, this has been a very hard time financially for a whole group of students. So if we find out that they're suffering from, financial distress or even mental distress, we've given them the opportunity to reach to our teams, and we can put them in touch with resources that might alleviate some of those problems. And that might also gain us people who come back and feel a little bit more sure about their prospects in the future.
Thank you so much, Val. This question is for both of you. In what ways has your work been positively impacted by COVID-19?
I'll let Letitia start with this one.
It's such an interesting question, but I think that COVID and pushing us to this virtual space has really allowed me to network and meet with way more faculty much sooner than I would have been. Part of what I've been trying to do is to reach out to every academic and staff unit and have meetings. And I think that if we were in person, those would have been much more challenging to schedule as easily as they have been. And so for me, building partnerships has been much easier in this virtual space than I think that they might have been if we were in person. It's also allowed me from the community partnership aspect, particularly if we think about the Cincinnati project, which I sit on the leadership team for, and the community partnerships that we are trying to foster there and the work that we're trying to get done there. It's allowing us to really expand our territory, so to speak, and to have deeper, more meaningful relationships with others in other areas that are doing the kind of work that we're interested in doing. And I was just saying to some departments the other day about cultivating relationships specifically with Hispanic serving institutions, which distance-wise are far from us. And so those types of relationships might have been much harder to cultivate in person because folks might expect you to come to them or vice versa. In this virtual world, you can set up a meeting to start to collaborate with just about anybody. And given that I'm building off of collaborative partnerships, that has really made my lift a little bit lighter in that way. It's made for a lot of Zoom meetings or WebEx meetings or Teams meetings, but it's allowed me to reach out to people.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button, which, as people who know me know, I have a really adversarial relationship with. So, with regard, how has it been? Has it positive? I think positively. Maybe because I am kind of like wired that way. It has made me feel more engaged in the sense that there are so many more challenges that for me, there's a book out there that is called "The Obstacle is the Way." Okay, so for me, obstacles are things that make me excited to come to work, in the sense that I want to solve issues. I want to try to figure out if there's a way that we can do something differently. I also think it heightens what I think are the basics of why I am in the position I am. I want to make a difference, and if I can help people either weather the crisis or find a solution for how we handle the crisis, that's the kind of thing that motivates me to, wake up in the morning and really early start thinking about, okay, what are we going to do today to move one step closer to some of the goals that we've declared are important to us. I think it has solidified my focus as I've told the members of my team, and Mike has been on that team more than Letitia. I think with respect to last year, I keep on coming back to our goals a lot more frequently and say, how are we following these goals? Are we on these goals? As opposed to last year where it was, okay, here are our goals. Oh, by the way, 2 months later, have we even thought about our goals? No, now it's really, okay, every month we need to sort of go through a routine about what are our goals? How are we getting there? What are the ways that we can actually measure that we're getting there? So I think it has impacted that. Generally speaking, crises do mess up with certain aspects of what we think is set in stone. So unsettling some of those things can be both good to say that we are going to confirm that those things have value for us the way they are, or they will say to us, well, maybe we have new solutions to find those things. So, at the same time, I think it's you balance that with the reality on the ground for many people, which is not good. And so for me, it's also becoming, I don't want to call it a cheerleader, but have to be there as a person that supports the struggles of people around me.
There's a question in the chat, Maggie. I don't know if you saw it, about majors or programs that are benefiting with enrollment or curricular in anticipation of a post-COVID world. I don't know what Val's response to this would be, but I think, Peter, my response would be, we don't know yet. I think I have some sneaky suspicions about what we might see moving forward, which really make me excited. I think one of the things that's happening at this very pivotal moment is we are seeing kind of with the magnifying glass, the ways in which there are tons of inequalities in our world. And so I'm imagining that the more we pull back the veil, that those types of programs and majors and courses that speak to some of these things are the ones that we're going to see students, once they navigate their mental exhaustion, sort of gravitate to. So we have our social justice degree, we have our MPA degree, and I really believe, and I don't have any evidence, but I really believe that once this thing kind of hits a point where people are able to kind of get themselves together, that we're going to see students gravitating towards those programs that have really been dealing with the issues that have been illuminated over this last year and a half.
So I will add that, I'll actually be more, I don't know if more specific, but I do want to say that we do have right now a very interesting group work across the university that was started prior to the pandemic, but has gained some energy. And this is the public health major that was it kind of was a certificate, then it grew. And so there are 8, I believe, colleges that are involved. It may be 9, I can't remember specifically, but the public health is something that obviously the pandemic has highlighted in many ways. And so it has extensive power through a number of our, obviously the health professions, but our college is seriously involved in this for a variety of reasons. I mean, some of the groups that Letitia talked about, I mean, we know and we can see that public health is disproportionately affecting certain populations. So how are we responding to that? What are the kind of things that we're doing politically? So, our poli-sci or sociologists there's a lot of groups that are involved in that. Now, because I know where you come from, Peter, so you're a historian. So one of the things that is really important for I think for us to think about is also in this specific environment, what our role is. And I'm speaking to you because I know that you're aware of these things, but we have a urban studies major in DAP that is really strongly collaborative with us and actually has a big historian component. It has sociologists. It has people who are studying what does an urban environment look moving forward in a post-COVID era, but also learning from our past. Okay, I mean, one of the things I just finished writing an article for a collection about being a dean in the COVID era, and I don't know how many of you know, but I have written on Boccaccio's Decameron, which is about the plague in 1348. So in fact, using that as an analogous situation for how people respond. So there's I think it does vivify the work that humanists have done in the past. So that's one area that I see. As you know, in your own department, David Stradling is putting forth an environmental studies BA. I think that's something that, again, highlights the interconnections between different areas, especially for the College of Arts and Sciences. These are all things that, in my view, are very important to pursue. On the science side, I think we have this new institute in sensing that is really looking at how, in fact, sensor could help us in things like a pandemic. How could they help us guide certain our responses? How could we get faster to answers? So there's a lot of opportunities and good solutions. So I think those programs are going to be really moving forward. And then, I know how heavily you're involved in things that have to do with digitization, digital, film, these things. I think that's a real good opportunity for us to look at the role, for example, that communication and visuals provide for us in a fast-moving world. And I mean, you can see, this stuff that we're doing right now, these are things that, how it's completely different, right? We've changed the game. I mean, and I don't know. I know Darlene does investment. Some of the companies that provide these services have grown humongously in this period, and the innovation has also grown. I mean, we look at it also in the speed by which people have come up with these vaccines. John Michaelman, I know that you're involved in chemistry. I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities in a lot of areas to sort of how do we do things and how did we do them and how could they change moving forward. And we do a lot of those things. So I think it's to me, it's a good thing for the college, as long as we take advantage of, using them for the right purposes. So I want to come back to Letitia. We really want to do them in a way that makes the world a better place.
Thank you both so much. So I know we're getting sort of close to the end of our time. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of add some final thoughts, but I do have one more question for you both. What are some ways that our alumni and friends, can help the college? If you guys want to give maybe a couple different ways they can do that. And Letitia, for you, maybe more specifically about some of those collaborations and community partnerships and things like that you were talking about would be great. So whoever wants to go first.
I think Letitia, I have to re-get my voice. I think I talk too much.
What? No, really, Bob? So I think there are a couple of things that I would love for our alumni to continue to do. And that one of them is to stay engaged, right? Because as Val just mentioned, thinking about our history and how our history sort of informs where we move to in our future. So having good, solid relationships with our alumni where we can draw on their historical knowledge of what we have done in the past, what things have looked like in the past, can really help inform the work that we are doing. I think specifically the work that I am doing with equity and inclusion, having real life stories, real life instances of what it was like to be a Bearcat in the College of Arts and Sciences. To me, those rich histories help us to remember sort of where we came from and where we look to go. I think in this era where we are financially strapped, being collaborative partners in a financial sense is also very important as we think about how to actually roll this work out and move this work forward and really have sort of an all hands on deck approach. I am really excited about the work that I am doing in the college, but I am an office of one, right? And so having as many financial partners and collaborative partners will really help us to move the work forward and to be able to really give equity and inclusion the attention that it deserves in the college. I think Val was super brave to hire for a position in the middle of a pandemic. The idea for my position was in the works well before a pandemic, but I think that in times of financial crises, people pull back on equity and inclusion initiatives. And Val could have done that. He could have said like, oh, I'm not doing this position anymore. And no one would have batted an eye on a large scale about that because it would have been like, oh, that makes sense. We're in a financial bind. We should not be doing this. But our commitment to inclusive excellence really won the day. And Val made sure that our commitment was clear in my position being hired. And so just continuing to do that work in a collaborative way, both sort of hands-on participation and dialogue, but also financially.
So I will add to that. I sometimes have a little bit of a pragmatic streak to my idealism. People have a hard time with me because I kind of move from the, oh, this is pie in the sky to, okay, what are we doing now? So I think you've already started to do some incredible work for us. Some of you have already volunteered in different capacities to, for example, go talk with our students in our classes, students who might be wondering whether this degree is something that they should pursue. Isn't it better if I go to work and start making money now instead of spending money and then having debt? Some of you have given them that confirmation that, yes, indeed, it is great for you to do this because look at me, I came from a similar background that you have, and this is where I ended up. Or in other cases, some of you have put a lot of money into scholarships and you have supported our students to, in fact, achieve dreams like you have achieved. We are always looking for support for our first generation and underrepresented students. And when we, and this is a vast number of students. I mean, we have huge needs, and I know that Mike and his team have been incredible in doing this kind of stuff. Others of you, and I don't want to sort of put people on the spot, but you've supported our research mission in incredible ways. And Peter just did a huge gift to our film studies group. That helps in our research goals, our ambitions to make areas excellent, and it gives that push to continue to enhance what we do at the university. So, but I do think in this time, being close to us, being close to the students, supporting our students and pushing them through the finish line, whether it is by encouragement and coming to classes. I mean, and if you have that interest, I'm sure our members of this team can put you in touch with Lisa Holmstrom and her advising team, or even some of our faculty who are asking for those moments. I know some of you have done them in the past. I think they can be very rewarding. So those are ways that you can continue to support us. The other thing is, hey, if you have a good idea, I'm always interested in good ideas. I don't know if I can implement them all, but I will certainly listen to all the ideas. And if I can move them to my sphere, I will. I actually want to give credit to, if he's still here, but maybe he's not here anymore. Let me see. Maybe he left. Anyway, but I want Matt Doyle. Talk to us about what happens at Procter & Gamble when they have a moment of crisis. And that model is something that inspired my wanting to look at the task force and saying, okay, let's strip everything down to the basics. What are our core values? What are we? And then based on that, how do we rebuild? So that's really the kind of thing that a good idea that I thought, hey, I think that's really good to apply to what we do. So I don't invent anything new. I just steal from everybody else. So keep doing that. Keep giving me ideas. I see there is a question in the chat. Will the students are already finding out right now? I mean, we are actually kind of started by departments. 2 departments have already informed, I think, their majors that this is what they're doing. They're going to be doing the pass-fail option, and so that's we're rolling it out as we speak.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for being here this evening and spending some time with us. As Val and Letitia both said, there are many ways to be engaged with the college. And I'm going to go ahead and put my email into the chat. So if you guys are interested in talking to some of our students in the classroom or getting engaged in other ways, I am here to help you put those things together and recruiting our future Bearcats and things like that. So thank you guys again for a wonderful evening. I really appreciate it. Good night, and we hope to see you on a virtual event soon.
I just want to say one last thing. Some of you have my email. Use it whenever you want. I'm actually behind. I'm like the last few days I'm really behind, but I do answer fairly quickly if I can. So please do write me. I actually enjoy speaking with people about the things that matter to them.
Thank you so much, Val. Good night, everyone.
Good night.